Gloria was just 6 years old. Small, soft-spoken. The kind of child who held her grandmother's hand wherever they went. The kind of child no one ever imagined would become the key to a mystery that silenced an entire household. On a quiet afternoon, while relatives moved in and out of the living room, whispering, pacing, searching for answers that never seemed to add up, Gloria stood in the hallway, watching everything, absorbing everything. Noticing things the adults walked right past. And then, she said something. A simple sentence. Spoken with the innocence of a child. Yet it froze everyone around her. Because Gloria hadn't just seen something. She had remembered something. Something small. Something strange. Something no one expected a child to understand. And that little detail. That quiet observation from a 6-year-old girl. Would unravel the truth about her grandmother's death. Piece by piece. Moment by moment. Until the entire family was forced to confront a reality they never imagined. This is the story of the little witness named Gloria. And the secrets she revealed. Before everything changed. Before questions replaced comfort. There was Gloria's grandmother. A woman everyone in the neighborhood simply called Mama Ruth. She was 64, warm-eyed, known for slipping extra candy into Gloria's pockets. Known for her loud laugh that carried across the yard. Known for the way she greeted neighbors by name, even when they didn't expect it. Mama Ruth had lived in that same house for more than 30 years. A modest home with fading yellow paint, a creaking wooden gate. And a porch where she sat every evening, waving as people walked by. It was the kind of neighborhood where everyone thought they understood everyone else. Doors left unlocked. Children playing outside until the streetlights blinked on. Families sharing meals on weekends. And gossip that traveled faster than the afternoon breeze. Inside Mama Ruth's home, life flowed in familiar patterns. Gloria spent her afternoons drawing beside her grandmother. Her mother helped in the kitchen. Her uncles moved in and out of the house, fixing what needed fixing, arguing about whatever brothers argue about, then laughing it off. It was steady. Ordinary. Predictable. Until the day everything stopped. The day the routine broke. The day silence filled the rooms where laughter used to echo. The day Gloria noticed something no one else was paying attention to. A detail so small. So easy to overlook. That the entire family walked right past it. Never imagining it would become the thread that unraveled everything. The morning it happened began like any other. Sunlight slipping through the curtains. Kettles boiling. Voices moving through the house in quiet, familiar rhythms. But by mid-morning, those rhythms broke. Gloria's mother was the first to sense something was wrong. Mama Ruth wasn't in the kitchen. Wasn't on her porch. Wasn't humming the same tune she hummed every morning without fail. She called her name once. Twice. 3 times. No answer. When the door to Mama Ruth's bedroom finally opened, everything changed. Family members would later describe the scene in hushed tones. Struggling to understand how a moment so ordinary could shatter their world so completely. Reports filed later that afternoon stated the same thing. No forced entry. No sign of a struggle. Nothing immediately pointing to what, or who, had caused her death. Paramedics noted the time. Officers noted the position. Investigators moved quietly through the room, searching for answers that didn't seem to exist. One officer wrote that the situation raised more questions than answers. Another recorded that the scene appeared oddly undisturbed. A third described the household as confused, distressed, unsure of what they were witnessing. Neighbors gathered outside. Some whispered theories. Others insisted it must have been natural causes, while a few believed something else had happened. Something the family couldn't yet comprehend. Inside the house, however, among the police tape, the clipboards, the cameras, one thing became clear. The explanations offered in those first hours didn't fit. The reports couldn't explain the look on Gloria's face. A look her mother would later describe as too knowing, too aware, for a child her age. Because while adults searched for answers in the usual places, Gloria watched from the hallway, her small hands holding the edge of the wall, her eyes fixed on something no one else was paying attention to. Something she remembered. Something she had seen before the commotion began. Something that would eventually turn the entire investigation upside down. Gloria. 6 years old. Small hands, curious eyes. A child whose world until that day had been simple. A world of crayons, bedtime stories, and afternoons spent tracing the patterns of sunlight on the living room floor. But that simplicity, that quiet innocence, did not stop her from noticing what everyone else had missed. Adults in the house moved quickly, their eyes scanning for signs, their minds racing through what should have been obvious. But Gloria saw things differently. She noticed the small movements, the unusual placement of objects, the briefest expressions on faces that spoke volumes she could not yet name. A book lying open, its pages turned to something no one remembered reading. A cup half full, still warm, though no one had touched it in hours. A photograph, tilted, the frame askew, as though someone had paused and then left in a hurry. Gloria didn't understand why it mattered. She only knew it was strange. She drew what she saw, traced the lines, pointed at the details adults ignored, and whispered small observations to anyone who would listen. Her mother bent down, tried to guide her back to play. But Gloria's attention never wavered. Her eyes lingered. Her mind pieced together a puzzle no one had yet begun to solve. And the most extraordinary thing, the thing no one expected, was that in her silence, in her careful watching, Gloria had begun to notice the pattern of the day. The things that had happened before anyone realized. The small, seemingly meaningless details that were, in fact, the key to understanding everything. She was 6. She was small. She was innocent. And yet, she was already seeing the story that the adults around her had failed to understand. It was not imagination, not play, not childish curiosity, but a clear, piercing observation that would lead the investigation in a direction no one could have predicted. Because sometimes, the eyes of a child see more than the eyes of those who believe they know everything. This is how Gloria became the little witness. The one who would quietly, patiently, begin to reveal the secrets of her grandmother's death. By the afternoon, police had arrived. Their shoes clicking softly on the wooden floors. Clipboards in hand. Flashlights probing corners. Their eyes trained on what adults believed mattered most. Detectives spoke in hushed tones, making lists, asking questions, following every lead, every theory, and every assumption. The initial suspects were obvious. Neighbors who had argued with Mama Ruth in the weeks before. A delivery person who had been seen near the house. family members who had disagreements about the estate. Everyone with some connection, everyone with some reason. But none of the answers seemed to fit. Investigators documented everything. Photographs taken, fingerprints collected. Forensic kits checked and rechecked. And yet, something was missing. Gloria, small and quiet in the corner, noticed the tilted photograph on the mantel. The drawer slightly open. The book lying face down. Things the adults had walked past. Things they dismissed as unimportant. Her uncle remarked later, in disbelief. She pointed at the lamp, and I thought she was just playing. But now I see, she was pointing to something no one else noticed. Officers recorded notes. Family members repeated their memories. But Gloria's small voice was often ignored. Until one detective finally knelt to listen. And realized that this little girl might be the only one seeing the pattern forming before their eyes. Missed clues, overlooked details. Subtle movements in the house. A shadow in the corner. A sound no one else remembered. All quietly witnessed by Gloria. The 6-year-old who understood more than anyone thought possible. And so, while adults debated, and investigators puzzled over false leads, Gloria held the first pieces of the puzzle. Pieces that would soon change the direction of the investigation entirely. Because sometimes the smallest observations come from the most unlikely eyes and make the biggest difference. Gloria had been watching. From the corner of the living room. From the hallway. From places adults never thought to notice. And slowly, piece by piece, she began to speak. Her voice was small, hesitant, almost like a whisper. The cup. It was warm. But no one drank from it. The book, it was open. On the page with the picture of Grandma. The door, it wasn't closed properly. Each sentence, each observation, seemed ordinary. But to detectives, it was extraordinary. Officers initially hesitated. Wondered if a child could truly remember such details. If these small observations were real. Or just the imaginings of a 6-year-old. One officer later admitted, I didn't think we'd get anything useful. But Gloria, she didn't lie, she saw. She spoke of things adults overlooked. A shadow crossing the room. A faint sound. A small object moved from its place. Details that seemed meaningless, until they were connected. Detectives began to trace her words. Revisit the photographs. Re-examine the evidence. And slowly, a pattern emerged. A trail that led them to places no one had looked before. Her family, at first skeptical, questioned whether Gloria truly remembered any of it. Yet she repeated the same details. Over and over. Each time adding clarity. Each time pointing them closer to the truth. And then, the breakthrough came. The small detail Gloria noticed in the kitchen. The tilted photograph on the wall. The drawer left slightly open. Became the key. The key that unlocked evidence critical to solving the case. Evidence that adults alone had completely missed. It was in that moment that detectives realized that Gloria, the 6-year-old child, had led them to the truth, and that her quiet observations would reveal secrets no one else had seen. It was a detail so small, so easily overlooked, that everyone had dismissed it. Everyone except Gloria. The cup on the counter. The book left open. The drawer left ajar. All pointed to one startling truth. A truth no one had imagined. A truth that shattered assumptions and revealed the real culprit. It was not a stranger. Not an intruder. Not someone from outside the family. It was someone inside. Someone whose face had been familiar. Whose presence had been trusted. Someone who had walked past Gloria, unaware that she had noticed everything. Detectives re-examined the evidence, traced the sequence of events. And suddenly, the pieces aligned. The inconsistencies. The small overlooked clues. The contradictions in alibis. All made sense. It was her uncle. The very person who had been arguing with Mama Ruth. The one adults assumed was harmless. Had taken advantage of trust and the quiet rhythm of the house to commit an act that no one anticipated. Gloria's observations. The things only she had noticed. The objects slightly moved. The shadows in the hallway. The sound no one else heard. Led detectives directly to him. And revealed the method he had used. A method planned with careful precision. Yet exposed by the eyes of a child. For hours, the family could not believe it. The investigators themselves were stunned. And Gloria, standing quietly, watching the adults try to comprehend the truth, had already understood it all. Before anyone else could. In that moment, everything changed. The investigation had a direction. The doubts were resolved. And the quiet little witness had proven that sometimes, the most unexpected person can reveal the answers everyone else missed. The arrest came quietly. Early one morning. The kind of morning when the streets are still empty. And the world holds its breath. Gloria's uncle was taken into custody. His face betraying a mix of disbelief and resignation. And for the first time, the family could see that the truth they had avoided was finally being confronted. The trial. Long, detailed, exhausting. Laid out every moment. Every observation, every small clue. Every piece of evidence. That Gloria's quiet eyes had noticed before anyone else. Detectives spoke in court. Telling the story not just of the crime, but of the child who had made it solvable. Without Gloria, one officer said, we might still be searching. We might still be asking questions that led nowhere. Family members struggled to process relief, to process grief. To understand how a 6-year-old had carried so much responsibility. And yet, they could not deny it. Gloria had changed everything. Her words, her quiet observations, had brought justice to a home that had lost its balance. The neighborhood slowly returned to normal. The streets filled again with laughter. Children playing. Neighbors greeting one another. But the story remained. Etched in every corner of that house. And in every life it had touched. For Gloria, life continued. But in the eyes of everyone who knew, she would always be remembered. Not just as a child, but as the little witness who saw what others could not, and helped uncover the truth hidden in plain sight. And in that truth, the family found closure. The detectives found purpose. And the world witnessed how the smallest voice can sometimes speak louder than the loudest ones around it. Gloria's story. Her quiet observations reminds us that truth is not always loud, not always obvious. Sometimes it waits in the smallest details, in the quietest moments, in the eyes of someone who is too young to be taken seriously, yet old enough to notice what matters most. In families, in neighborhoods, in the spaces we think we know, secrets can linger, unnoticed, hidden in plain sight, waiting for someone, anyone, to pay attention. Intuition, innocence, curiosity. These are not just traits of childhood. They are tools. Tools that can uncover what adults might miss. Tools that can guide investigations. And, sometimes, bring justice to those who cannot speak for themselves. And perhaps the most important lesson is the importance of listening. Truly listening. To the small voices. To the whispers. To the details we think are insignificant. Because often, they hold the answers to questions we have been asking all along. In Gloria's case, a child's simple observations. The quiet notes she remembered. The things others ignored. Revealed the truth. And in doing so, changed the lives of everyone around her. Forever. Sometimes, justice comes not from experience or strength, but from paying attention, from noticing what others overlook, from listening to the little witness, and trusting that even the smallest voice can carry the greatest truth. A child's eyes saw what adults could not, noticed what others overlooked, and in those small, quiet observations, reveal the truth that changed everything. It is a reminder that sometimes justice, clarity, and understanding come from the most unexpected places, from the voices we might not always hear, from the details we might be tempted to dismiss. Gloria's story, her quiet courage, and her unwavering attention, show us that the smallest witness can have the greatest impact. And if you want more stories like this, stories of secrets uncovered, truths revealed, and justice quietly found, share your thoughts. Let us know in the comments. Because every story deserves to be heard.